Yokoso peeps, it's Oz, and today I'll be answering some of the most popular questions people have about living in Japan. So awesome. This video is brought to you by all my Patreon supporters. Go Team Awesome! So the last video I made talked about some of the most popular questions people have about traveling to Japan. If you're interested in that video, please check that out. But in this video, I want to focus more on questions that people have about actually living or working in Japan. So for those of you who are planning to live or work in Japan or stay in Japan for a longer period of time, this might be some helpful information for you and let you know and help you decide if Japan is the right country for you. First of all, for those of you who don't know me, I have lived in Japan on and off for over a decade. And I've lived in different parts of Japan. I've lived in Hokkaido, I've lived in central Japan, Nagoya, and now I live in Chiba. Also, I've worked in Japan as an ALT teacher, as an Eikaiwa teacher, as a kindergarten teacher, and as a business English teacher. Also, I've moved around quite a bit and I've lived in over 10 different apartments and houses across Japan, so I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's get to the questions. It can be. It depends on two things. One, location. If you live in Japan in one of the bigger cities like Tokyo or Osaka, then your rent is going to be very high and your apartment is going to be very tiny. My friend used to live in an apartment in Shibuya, a one-bedroom apartment, very close to the Shibuya crossing area, and he was paying $1,500 a month. Alternatively, I lived in a two-bedroom apartment 5 minutes away from Chiba station, and my rent was about $700 a month. And now I live in a small town, also a couple of minutes away from the station, in a two-bedroom apartment, but now my rent is $500 a month. And number two is the age of the place you live in. If you want to live in a nice new area with new apartment buildings with high security and all that fancy gadgetry like the toilet, bidet toilets and all that stuff, then it's gonna cost you. If you don't mind living a little bit further away from the station in a housing that's a bit older, that has tatami mat flooring or like those sliding doors and thinner walls, then you can save a lot of money and still be pretty cheap. And in terms of transportation and food, it's the same thing. Living in the bigger city area, most food prices will be more expensive, and also transportation. But if you live in a small town area, the buses and the local trains will be a lot cheaper, and food will also be cheaper as well. You pretty much are paying for the convenience you want in your life. And if you love traveling and you want to not just stay in your neighborhood, but you want to get around to other parts of Japan or other parts of Asia, and you like to travel, then of course that'll get expensive as well. Alternatively, if you are someone who likes to stay in your local area, if you're a homebody and you just like doing things that are more indoor or closer to home, then of course you'll be able to save a lot more money. It really is up to your lifestyle. My answer is yes, but not fluently, especially if you're working here as an English teacher. If you're working in a Japanese company and need to use Japanese every day with coworkers and clients, then of course Japanese fluency will be necessary. If you're here teaching English, you could probably get away with 0 to just basic or intermediate Japanese. But in terms of life in Japan, not knowing any Japanese at all, it's definitely going to limit your choices and opportunities. For example, if you don't understand Japanese, you won't be able to enjoy Japanese TV or movies, anime or manga, since there are no English subtitles here. Also, if you're hoping to make Japanese friends, you'll be limited to those Japanese who can actually speak English well and have been abroad, which is harder than you think. You'll still be able to travel and shop and eat in Japan, but you might not be able to find the best deals or the best places because you don't have the language. And without Japanese, you won't be able to do a lot of things like doing paperwork for work or taxes or health or legal or other issues that come up. You'll need to find someone at your work to help you out, or possibly someone Japanese like your friend or boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife who speak Japanese fluently to help you out. If you are single and you're alone and you have no friends or family, then it's definitely going to be a struggle for you living here in Japan without the language. No matter what some foreigners might tell you, the answer will always be yes. You will always be treated differently when you're in Japan. The good news is, out of this time that you're treated differently, most of it will be positive. Racism does exist in Japan, but overall, foreigners in Japan get treated with kid gloves. It's something we call the gaijin smash, which allows foreigners a free pass or get out of jail card for not knowing exactly what's going on because we're foreigners. Sometimes we don't want to be treated differently, but we don't have a choice. And no matter how long you live in Japan or how fluent you get, you'll always come across people who will assume you don't know anything about Japan or the language. Even people who know you for like years, for example your neighbor or your coworker, might make excuses for you when you don't understand something because they'll assume you don't know it because you're a foreigner and not because you just don't know it. Some foreigners get really frustrated and pissed off because they don't want to be treated differently than Japanese people. But for me, to tell you the truth, I don't mind it at all. I actually take it as a good thing. For me, it's like having an advantage because not only do I know what the Japanese way is, but I also know my country's way, and then I can kind of base what I want to do based on which way I find more comfortable. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes you are going to be judged basically unfairly because of assumptions of the way you look or the color of your skin or the country you're from. But overall, a lot of the time this is done not out of hate but out of ignorance. Usually when I explain my ideas or my reasoning, people tend to understand them and accept them. That is a hard question for me to answer, surprisingly. So I first came to Japan in 2003, and my plan was just to stay for a year to teach English at an eikaiwa and then go back to Canada. I ended up staying for 4 years and getting married to a Japanese girl before moving back to Canada. And then I thought I'd got Japan out of my system, but then I decided I really wanted to go back to Japan. So I came back to Japan as a JET program ALT, and I started in Hokkaido, and then I left there, and then I moved to Chiba, and I've been in Chiba for 7 years. So my honest answer of how long I plan to live in Japan is I have no idea. My current visa I'm on is a work visa and it renews every 1 year. So technically I could even leave next year if I wanted. Some foreigners decide they want to be permanent residents and then they end up staying forever. But I'm still not sure what I want to do. Some other people get married and they get spouse visas and they also can live in Japan for long term. Once again, I still don't know what I want to do. I guess I will decide that when the time comes. Depending on my job or my love life or my family situation back home, that'll determine if I stay in Japan longer or if I go back to Canada. The good news is as long as I have a work visa and I'm doing something in Japan, I can't really get kicked out. I can stay as long as I have a working visa. There is no age limit or time limit, so if a company is willing to sponsor you to work here, you can stay. This really depends on the individual, but if I had to generalize, I would say comparing my dating life in Toronto to comparing my dating life in Japan, Japan is much easier. Getting dates for me has always been easy in Japan. It's the next step of actually getting a girlfriend and having it go long term and being successful. That's where the trouble comes in. And I think Asian Japanese girls or guys looking for foreign boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives is just as popular as ever. And the good news is because of the changing the world, the more information, the invention of the internet and Facebook and social media and Tinder and all these chances of everyone to get exposure to so many different kinds of people, it's easier for all races, all cultures to get dates, not just white people. I think Japanese women are very open to dating Japanese men and other culture men as well. They're a lot more, I guess, open to the idea of befriending or dating or marrying someone outside of their own culture. I'm sure there are still some people from, for example, some Japanese people who only want to marry or date Japanese people or only want to marry or date foreign people only. But I think in general, most Japanese people are open to the idea of any person as long as they are compatible with their lifestyle and their needs. I still think that Japanese girls are attracted to white guys initially, but what I did learn is once they get to know you, it doesn't really matter what color you are. It matters how they feel around you. So my final answer for is it easy to get dates in Japan, I would say yes. If I can do it, anyone can. I would say generally no, you're allowed to be your own unique person, but I have a feeling that you just naturally will. For example, in terms of bowing, it's a very popular part of the Japanese culture. Japanese people do it pretty much all the time for every situation. Whether it's just passing a stranger or meeting a friend or going to a meeting, meeting clients, meeting family members, meeting friends, going on a date, saying goodbye to your friends. In every situation, even shopping, you'll find that you're always bowing or getting bowed to. It's so popular that even people when they're talking on the phone will bow while they're having phone conversations. It's just a natural, physical part of culture that's been ingrained in society, and I mean, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to, but I feel like you'll just naturally end up doing it anyway. Sometimes there's rules of how much of a degree deep bow you have to give according to business or whatever. So I have a feeling foreigners, like I said, can have the gaijin smash and they can get away with not bowing exactly the way they're supposed to, but as long as you're making the effort to bow, I think most Japanese people will appreciate it. This will depend on your company, your boss, your coworkers, and your overall work culture. Some companies, especially traditional style Japanese companies, might expect you to be part of the team during the day and also go out with them drinking afterwards and do overtime and stay with the boss in all occasions. And you might be asked to entertain clients after work at hostess bars or drinking bars or stuff like that. But overall, I think drinking with coworkers or your boss is very voluntary, and especially if you're a foreigner, it's not really expected. And if you're an English teacher, I doubt you'll ever go drinking with your Japanese bosses unless it's for an end of year event or a Christmas party or something like that. Most Japanese people in general are reluctant or shy to communicate outside of work anyway with foreigners unless they really get to know you really well and you speak really good Japanese. I doubt they will even ask you to go drinking with them after work. In my experience, most foreign teachers, for example, end up going drinking with other foreign teachers, and most Japanese staff end up going drinking with their Japanese staff. It might be different if you're a foreigner working in a Japanese company that's not like English teaching. You might be expected to be part of the Japanese section and go drinking with them, but I would say overall it's your own personal choice. Kind of. I mean, free healthcare, for example, even in Canada, is paid for by your taxes. And Japan also has a healthcare system that works similar, where tax money is used for healthcare. In general, the country, Japan, pays for 70% of your bill, and you pay the leftover 30%. The good thing is healthcare is really cheap in Japan, so even that 30% is almost nothing. For example, when I went to my last doctor's checkup, I had a blood test, urine test, and a general checkup, and I believe the entire bill came to $30. And then the medication I had that I had to take for 3 months, that 3 months worth of medication also came to about $7. I guess it really depends on the illness and the amount of medication or medical procedures you need to have done. But I would say in general, it's a lot cheaper in Japan to pay for that than it is at other countries. I think in my 10 years of being here, I've never been to the doctor and paid over $100. If you have a work visa, then yes. If you're on a teaching or an instructor visa, like a Eikaiwa or ALT teacher, you will have no problem getting a job and getting a visa. Very simple. They're always looking for English teachers, so as long as you have a 4-year degree from an English-speaking country, then you should have no problem finding a job and getting a visa. And if you're on a general visa or a spouse visa or a student visa even, you can probably get a lot of different jobs in a lot of general areas, like working at a ramenya or izakaya or a convenience store or something like that. Also, there are many IT companies and tech companies looking for those with skilled work. So if you have that kind of a degree, you can most likely get a working visa with that kind of a company. I know right now a lot of Indian people have been brought into Japan to work as IT specialists. Foreigners that are in Japan have a variety of different jobs, from like tourist attractions, hotels, ski resorts, amusement parks, translation companies, importing and exporting companies, headhunting and human resources, as well as a variety of international companies. The most important thing is having the proper work visa, which you can get via the company that hires you. I would say Japanese people are very spiritual and superstitious, but not very religious. There are some Christian Japanese people or Japanese people who are parts of other religions, but most Japanese people are Buddhist or Shinto. And in both cases, that usually means they're not very practicing. They basically go to the temple or the shrine for weddings, funerals, or for New Year's. And Japanese people will go to temples and shrines during the year to do like a short small prayer and get a special token or a special charm for whatever they need at that time. For example, for a healthy pregnancy, or for a car license, or for passing the test, or for having good health or having a good love life. They tend to just believe in religion without actually practicing it. Japanese people and foreigners might differ here, and most companies have their own rules as well. But official government holidays tend to include special days like Labor Day or Sea Day or Seniors Day, and also 3, I guess, groups of holidays. One is called Golden Week, one is called Obon, and one is the Oshogatsu, end of year, New Year's holiday. These holidays are a week long and everyone gets the same holidays off. Travel and transportation gets really crowded and expensive, and even some companies allow people to work during those times and take alternative days off instead. On top of that, usually Japanese companies provide anywhere from 1 week to 3 weeks holiday, depending how long you've been there. Some Japanese companies allow you to take that and you just take it whenever you want, whereas other companies say they give you those holidays, but because there's so much work, you don't actually get to take those off and you end up just getting paid out for those days instead. For foreigners, I can't say for all foreigners, but especially for foreigners who work in English teaching, you tend to get a lot of holidays. You get set holidays like the Obon and Golden Week and the New Year's time, and you also usually get about 7 or 8 days if you work for an eikaiwa, or an entire month in August and a month in December if you work in the school system like an ALT. And when I was a kindergarten teacher, I had to still work in the summer, but I got like 3 weeks off, and the rest of the summer vacation I only had to work half days, kind of like a tutoring kind of job. I think the longest and best holidays are for ALTs, which is what I'm doing now. I have entire months, or I did until coronavirus, but for example last summer I had middle of July off and all of August off and all of mid-December to mid-January off. So about 3 months worth of holidays on top of the regular Golden Week, Obon Week, and those other sparse holidays here and there. Plus I get an extra week of my own holidays that I can take whenever I want, and all of it is all paid. Some ALT companies might give you only 50% or maybe even nothing for the months that you don't work, but because I work directly for the government as an ALT, I get paid full paid holidays. Many Japanese people who are full-time workers and considered full-time employees do get bonuses twice a year. One in the summer and one in the winter. And the bonuses are really big. They range anywhere from $1,000 to like $20,000 per bonus, depending on how long you've worked there and the type of company and the amount of profits that company made. That's amazing if you think about it. Adding on top of your regular yearly salary an extra $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. But if you work as a part-time employee, a freelance worker, or a contract worker, you don't get those bonuses. And it depends on the company you work for. Some smaller companies don't give bonuses at all. In terms of English teachers, and in terms of teaching English in Japan, a lot of companies either give no bonuses or give very small bonuses. For example, where I used to work at Aeon, I used to get a bonus of about 150,000 yen, or about $1,500, only once for the year. So it's only one bonus, and it's a very tiny fraction of what you would get if you were a Japanese worker. And a lot of English companies and a lot of ALT companies don't give any bonus at all. JET program also provides no bonus. I'm lucky though, although I'm an ALT, since I'm directly hired by the Board of Education, I do get bonuses twice a year. If you're working in Japan, you'll be paying taxes to Japan. However, some countries you might have to pay tax back home as well. It's best to contact your own country and find out your own tax laws and regulations in your own country. For Americans, I believe you don't have to pay any income tax to America unless you go over a certain amount in Japan, and the amount is pretty high. It's like 80 to 100,000 a year, I believe. If you make more than that, then you have to claim it and pay tax in America as well. So in terms of Canada, you don't have to pay tax to Canada, but you do have to file your taxes and claim as a non-resident. I personally have always had a working visa sponsored by the company I've worked for. When I first came to Japan, I worked for Aeon, and I had my visa set up from them before I arrived in Japan. Once again, when I was in Canada and I wanted to come back, I applied through the JET program, and they took care of all the visa stuff as well. After JET program, I decided to work for a kindergarten company, so I had to change my visa with them. Unfortunately, it wasn't the same type of visa. I had to change from ALT English instructor visa to a humanities visa to work as a kindergarten teacher. So I had to change the visa over to that, but the company helped me out with that, and they helped me through the process as well. Then after kindergarten, when I wanted to work as an ALT now, where I work now, I had to re-change my visa again to go back to the instructor or foreign teacher visa away from humanities. So I had to do all the paperwork all over again and apply for a different kind of visa again. But once again, the government Board of Education I work for now, they help me out with all the paperwork and all the process. If you want to work in Japan and you can get a company to sponsor you, that's best. If you come as a working holiday or if you come as a student, you can still find jobs, and companies can hire you. And if you are married to a Japanese person, you can get a spouse visa. That's a really good visa to have because it doesn't limit you to the kind of job you have. Whereas, for example, my visa, I can only teach English. I can't do anything else. And some other visas only require you to do that kind of work. So with a spouse visa, it's pretty much open to any kind of job you can get. And if you become a permanent resident, then once again, you're free to try to find any job you want. This is another question where I'll have to say yes and no. I'm gonna say yes, it's hard to make Japanese friends because probably the main reason is language barrier. Japanese people, although they've studied English in junior high school and high school and some even in university, speaking it itself is very difficult, so they're kind of shy and nervous to talk to foreigners in English, so that might be a barrier. Also, Japanese people, depending on where they work or what kind of job they have very little free time or very little chances to go outside of their friend circle to meet new friends. That being said, if you want to make Japanese friends, your best bet is probably to go to international parties or places where there's a lot of Japanese people who interact with foreigners constantly. Those people probably have a lot of chance to talk English, are much more comfortable with foreigners, and are more likely to be friends with you. It's funny because you'll notice that Japanese people will go out with their high school friends, will go out with their university friends, will go out with their elementary school friends, or go out with their local neighborhood friends or whatever. Individually, they'll never mix them. It's kept very separate. Your friend circles are kept separate. The good thing is foreigners are not part of that friend circle, so we're a lot more fluid. We can go from one circle to the next. And like I mentioned before in the video, the more Japanese you know, the better chance you have of making friends. Well, there you go. Those were the popular questions I get about living in Japan. Did I answer all your questions? Is there any other questions you think that should be on the list? Please let me know in the comment section below. Also, to support my channel, consider becoming a Patreon. For as little as $1, you'll get a life update and videos about Japan not available on YouTube. Also, if you're looking for a smarter, safer, and better way to surf the net, please check out NordVPN. It allows you to access sites blocked in your country, access to streaming content not available in your area, and safe and secure browsing from anywhere in the world. If you sign up for NordVPN, use my code OzzyAwesome to get 70% off and 1 month free. Thanks for watching, and please thumbs up if you like this video and share. And don't forget to subscribe because my videos are awesome. OzzyAwesome. Take care and see you next time. Peace.